I don't have my computer on, but I have my notebook, so I'll do it.
Durango 1520.
Okay. Where's my thingy?
There you go.
I call the meeting to order. Sarah, will you establish a quorum, please?
Sherry Bird.
Here.
Joe Kusar.
Here.
Stephanie Moran.
Here.
Mick Souter. Nancy Stubbs.
Here.
William Lamons. Izzy Rushton.
Here. Okay, can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that the agenda for the February 20, 2018 regular school board meeting be approved and presented.
Second.
Sarah?
Sherry Bird.
Aye.
Joe Kusar.
Aye.
Stephanie Moran.
Aye.
Nancy Stubbs.
Aye. All right, and we're going to invite Gavin up to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you stand, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have two wonderful schools we're going to be recognizing this evening and hearing all about them. First, we have Riverview. Where's my page? There it is.
Where to go?
Okay, sorry. I usually have an introduction on my sheet here. So is that?
I don't know.
I'm Doug Hagan, principal for Riverview. Most of you probably know that. But we're going to, Riverview is going to recognize two of our programming from two of our campaigns tonight. And so I'm going to start with, we're going to recognize PTO, and we're going to recognize the program. We'll start with PTO, recognize great work they do. We're going to kind of say the second meeting, but a little bit on tonight. That's kind of nice. So I'd like to start with my PTO. So in just a second, I'm going to invite you guys up and see a number of our members here. When I first came to Riverview 8 years ago, we went to my first PTO meeting at 8:15 in the morning. How many people showed up to that PTO? Right. One person. The very first one I went to was Jennifer Miller. One person showed up, and so it was something clear to me to work on. So in the 8 years since I've been here, we had Jennifer Miller. Tommy Wells came in for 4 years, and Wendy Lasher has been our president now. This is your fourth year, correct? Third year. I guess that would match my 8 years, right? In that time, we've grown from a meeting of one at 8:15 in the morning to evening PTO meetings that regularly bring 20, 30 parents, and like 15 or 20 kids, because now we do I guess childcare with pizza, which is a big draw. And so that's just a little indication of the growth of our parent organization and parent engagement. We get over 5,000 hours every year of volunteer hours from parents, and that's just the monthly track. We figure every year it's about 3 full teachers we have in parent volunteers. We have a fundraising event called Fun Run that brings in a large amount of fun. How much was our fun run this year? $30,000. And your kids don't need to hit the street to make that happen. And there's so much of that fundraising that comes in. It's your parents actually going out and talking to local businesses about the work that we do, and local businesses help contribute. We have Reading Rocks going right now. Hey, Harper, my daughter Harper is here. Do you love Reading Rocks? She loves Reading Rocks. My kids both when they read a ton. We like twice as much during Reading Rocks. Last year we had 70% of our students participate. This year I'm not quite sure where we're at right now. 8.8 or something. Oh yeah, where's that? How many? Not quite. We're over 50%, right?
Yeah, we'll get there.
We have Donuts with Dad once a year to bring our dads into school once a year. We have morning coffee the first day with our senior parents, welcome them into our community. It goes on and on with our PTO. Most importantly, they are the role model parents for bringing kids to school prepared every single day. You guys make a huge difference, a huge difference. Can I have you guys come up so I can introduce you real quick? And so can we please, they work full time and it's possible. So I'm just going to introduce very quickly our president is Wendy Lasher. Wendy's been amazing, but I hear she's recruiting for a new president, right? So she's been awesome. Christy Dean was our vice president. Allison Clausen, she's just our Reading Rock person, you told me today, but that's huge academic impact. We have some other folks that are not here today, but you guys are amazing. So, school board, these folks are as much part of our team as anybody out there.
And
Thank you guys very
we recognize that and appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
While Sherry's giving the certificates, I'd like to also recognize Wendy Lasher. Wendy approached us early in the year, actually at the kindergarten breakfast, or the new parent breakfast, about reaching out and engaging PTO presidents from across the district. And so we've hosted 2 this year, gathering of all of our PTO presidents from all of our schools, great networking opportunity. And Wendy, that's really, credit goes to you for pulling that together. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. All right, so we're going to get on to, I would like to move on to our under music program. And so we have a couple of staff here tonight who, let me start over. Ruby has an amazing music program. When we go to our festival, which is in May at the high school, that festival is loaded with Ruby kids. I think we have, how many kids we have in our music program right now? And this is not just special. How kids do music every day? We have extended music programs. We've got 90, 100 kids.
As far as like the enrichment program,
Enrichment and after-school choir.
in our orchestra program, we currently have 65 students, and our choir program has 45 students.
Okay. Some of them are crossover, but nearly 25% of our student body not only take music during the day, but also participate in after-school music programming. We have some during the day music programming. And here what's been amazing. Shannon, sit up here. Shannon worked with an organization called Be Frank, and Be Frank is a music organization, non-profit, and their whole goal is to bring music to kids. And I don't see Black is not here, is he?
So Carl is here, he works.
And so they have collaborated and created this amazing music program. So we provide orchestra and choir during the day. And then kids participate in the Be Frank collaboration. So the instruction is happening at school and it's carried forward in the after-school program, which I think is a huge part of the success. That is it is a beautiful model of schools working with community organizations to create something really special for kids. I'm really proud of you that hundreds of kids, my own kids do it. And it's not just that they participate, even if it takes us in a second. It's the level of musicianship that is coming out of our school. It's quite high. I'd actually say our 5th grade performances match those of our 8th grade and middle school, maybe. That's how I sell it on the street. And so Shannon is our music teacher, who also takes a lot of extra time to make sure that this community collaboration happens. So we have 4 or 5 instructors that come in through the week. We have music classes just about every day happening, make it happen. And then where's Beth? So I want to call Beth. Beth is our 4th grade teacher, who then takes time during the school day and after school to teach music to our kids, to make sure that we have a program that is incredible. So I want to thank you guys. It's a model and it's amazing. So thank you.
That's okay.
practitioners. Thank you for the work that you do. So thank you so much for teachers. I appreciate it so much.
So now we're gonna get, just a second, we get to the real stars, so the kids are sitting on it. But I actually want to thank the school board. Dan, I want to thank you in particular, because you've been nothing but supportive of that kind of programming and continuing it and actually trying to make it bigger and better. So I really appreciate it. It's a huge deal for kids. So thank you guys. All right. You want me to introduce the kids? Should we call them all?
Yeah.
One by one or all? All right. We have 5 students on ours today. We're just going to come up one by one, and I'm going to have Shannon or Beth just kind of share just a little bit about me. So I think I'd like to see, where's Tristan? Tristan, get up here, buddy. All right, I'm going to let you guys talk.
So this is Tristan Williams. He's a 3rd grader at Riverview. And the theme that you're going to hear tonight with these kids is perseverance. Music is hard. Everything about being a musician is challenging. And if you can persevere in music, you can persevere in just about anything. And Tristan, music class is in a place not for him to just flourish musically, but also socially. We work as a team in music class, and he's always ready to try again. So last week, Ms. Homer's class came down, and we were ready to go, and we got ready, and we clearly weren't ready. So we tried that again, and Tristan came by and said, "We'll make it happen, Mrs. Fontenot." So he's always ready to keep on trying. So congratulations, Tristan.
All right, so Audrey, come on up, Audrey.
So Audrey's a 4th grader. She started in Beth's intermediate orchestra, and she just has had this drive and determination to learn to read music and has worked really, really hard. And she has now moved into my advanced orchestra group. And I said, you can write in the note names of your open strings. And she's like, oh, I got this. So she works really hard and is becoming a leader and always working hard with smiles. So, nice job.
Okay, one of our 5th grade leaders, Gavin, who did the pledge. Come on up, please.
Gavin Midco is a 5th grader at Riverview. He played violin last year, and then this year said, I'm going to play cello. So I was like, okay, but you realize you're starting back at the beginning group. So he did. He was at the beginning group. He has worked really, really hard, and he moved into the intermediate group and quickly into the advanced group, and keeps at it and smiles along the way. And sometimes he's like, oh, I don't have this. But then goes home and works at it and brings some skills the next week. So nice job, Gavin.
Okay, Ella.
This is Ella Clausen. She's in 2nd grade. And she, because of our collaboration with B. Frank, has been able to join our advanced orchestra. And we only offer the program for 2nd graders for advanced 1 day a week. And so she only gets 1 day a week, but she goes home and she practices hard. And I was just telling her grandmother, who gives her lessons, today, her tone has gotten so big. And so she works really, really hard and always has a smile on her face and is becoming a leader in her section. So
So you may recognize resemblance. It's not just the color of their hair.
So Nate Clausen Austin has been in a Riverview Orchestra for 2 years now, and he takes private lessons as well with Grandma. And he's always prepared for rehearsal and sets a good example for what practice does. When you practice, you sound better. So he always is ready for rehearsal and sets a good example for his friends. And like, this all sound like that too. So congratulations.
Yeah, so these two, Ella and brother and sister do, much like the Shaminatus from the Olympic class. Sister won bronze medals, I don't know their name. But you guys are like our gold medalists. We're going to ask them to perform with a short piece. Can you tell us where you're going to perform? Wonders Chorus? Awesome. Are you guys ready? Cool. Yeah. All right, well, thank you guys for all folks in this room that are helping me through the retrip. I really appreciate it. Those two kids are awesome. Good kids can be like that, and write like that, and do math like that. We can just be good people like that. I'm really proud of the school that I work at, and I'm really proud of the people I work with. So thank you guys.
Doug.
Oh, yeah,
Could everybody come back up so we get your picture?
Quick picture.
While we're gathering, we'd like to thank you for all that you do in your leadership in this school and your wonderful staff and students. It's amazing. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Thanks. Performers instead of just talking about it.
She's in the second grade. My kids are still drooling.
Alice, you want to get down the shot? Should we just get everybody?
It's amazing.
Sounds like it's a competition.
It's awesome.
Are you guys watching?
Yeah, come this way. Thank you so much. So fun.
Good job. Yeah, good job.
It's okay.
Man, practice makes perfect. See, you're really wonderful. Good job.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support.
Good to see you again. Thanks very much.
One time, it's like, this is what I think.
Now, where are all the little?
Okay, we have another school this evening. The
box is right there.
In there, and they're supposed to be in order.
Okay.
And we'd like to invite Jenny McKenna from Needham up, please. Another one of our amazing schools.
The teacher.
Jenny?
Is Jenny here? Am I not speaking loud? Yeah, I'm on. This is Jenny McKenna, the principal of Needham Elementary School. Oh.
Hi, my name is Jenny McKenna. I'm the principal at Needham, and I'm glad for the music theme tonight because I started to think that Needham kind of beats to its own drum, and that's a good thing. I'm fortunate to be at a school that's not like any other school I've worked with, in part because of this entire kindergarten team. And I'll introduce you first. We have Sarah Shibakos, teacher, Beth Hermesman, para, Robin Opp, para, Susie Shows, teacher. We've got Jen Latham, para, and Gina Pressler, teacher. Do you want to introduce your students?
Sure. And this is Olive. And I nominated Olive because every day she comes with this smile and she gives hugs all day long. And she spreads a lot of kindness and a lot of happiness in our classroom every day. And she's also so excited to learn. She tries hard even when she has a challenge. So she's just our kindergarten shining star, and we just love having her in class.
And this is Thomas Chamberlain. And Thomas is such a joy to have in class. He is so kind and respectful to students and staff. He is an excited and enthusiastic learner who loves science and comes in and shares everything he knows and enthusiasm with everyone in our room. And it's just a pleasure to have him in class.
I'm so excited to introduce Bowden Noctree. Bowden just gives 100% to everything he does, whether it be your friends, classmates, or just being enthusiastic about a project, whether it's science or reading, he's ready for anything during school day. He comes in every single day with a smile and excited and hugs and just can't wait to get started. So really proud of you. And the latest thing was that we had this challenge, and it was called the Sight Word Challenge. And he had was ready and studied every night and mastered all of the sight words that we had for, which was over 200.
Oh, wow.
Oh, they want pictures.
Before I say a few things about each individual educator, I just wanted to say that really what I have found special about Needham is what you hear a lot in the education of our family, and I really have never felt that way about school until Needham. So this kindergarten team has been through a lot this year, a lot of challenges, hiring new people, myself, and some ways, and so the work that they've done could not have been done unless they decided to come together as a really, really strong team. So they're really an example for the rest of the school. So I just want to say a quick thing about each person and something that you have taught me. I'll start with Sarah. Sarah is a highly organized machine in the classroom. Absolutely wonderful. What I learned from Sarah is that people here really, really great with and that's what she does. So thank you, Sarah. And that works alongside Sarah and joining us in this year as well. It's definitely a challenging role. being the right young person for Sarah in some very difficult circumstances. Something I've learned from Beth is that it's important every day to come back with open arms. And Robin is carrying Susie's classroom. And Robin has a very strong sense of what is right and what is fair and what can truly be accomplished in their classroom. She has an extremely tight relationship with Susie. And so something I've learned from Robin is how important it is to honor and cherish that team dynamic which is there. And this is Susie, teacher in the classroom. Susie comes with just this ebullience of energy and warmth, and everything just feels yellow, spring-like in the classroom. One thing I've learned from Susie is that no matter what you're given, there's that optimism that's in finding the best of every single person. And this is Jen. Jen is up here with Gina. Jen reminds me a little bit of an educational soldier because she keeps helps Gina keep a little army in line. And the reason that's important is because they are super solid and consistent in their classroom. And so something I really, really appreciate about Jen is that she has a really clear picture of why they're there. And Gina, teacher. Gina is a mentor, not just to the rest of the kindergarten staff, but to our staff as a whole. And, she's a member of our ILT, and I would say something that I've learned from Gina is to really question carefully all of the things sometimes we think are true and we think we believe, but then to look at what happens in the classroom and to see what's really best for kids. So one thing I really, really appreciate about Gina is that no matter what chaos is going on or what questions they have, 100% devoted to the kids learning. So.
That's cute. They all are. Cool.
Again, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for recognizing us. For recognizing us.
This book is good. Let's touch it.
It's really cute. Thanks for recognizing us. Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. I know. Thank you for letting me.
Oh, no problem. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Needham. The kindergarten is the first step into school, and it sets us on the right path. So we really appreciate everything.
Is it working?
I don't know. It didn't sound like
You gotta lean in.
You gotta lean in, Nancy. We can't
Or
hear
pull
you.
it forward.
Thank you, Needham and Riverview. Appreciate you coming and sharing with us.
that's fine. That's good.
Okay, we're moving on to agenda item 5A. We'd like to invite Kathy Morris, who is our 9R Safety and Security Coordinator. And we'd also like to invite the police and the fire, right?
Fire's not here.
Well,
just-
and the sheriff.
Oh, sorry.
Sheriff, sorry. Where's the fire? Fake it. Kathy, you can cover fire. So we're going to begin this evening. I'd like to invite you each to say something and then enter into a discussion with you, maybe some questions and back and forth dialogue. Does that sound okay? Might want to wait just 1 second till it gets out. Okay. Kathy?
That's why we're here, right? Is for our children. So
That's right.
A really nice
So
presentation.
it makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah. So I appreciate this emergency responder linkage, especially with our law enforcement. I'll get closer.
Just pull it.
In light of recent events, I think it's important for you to hear from our emergency responders, the chief and the sheriff himself. School safety is number one priority for the Durango 9 North School District. Just this past week, I testified up at the Capitol in front of the Senate Education Committee with regards to the SAFER grant legislation, which will provide us a great opportunity for increasing our emergency preparedness through communications, of interoperability communications, as well as providing us some training that we need for boots on the ground, right? So it gives us a sense of safety and security for our students, staff, and our community. So I'm super excited. Senator Quorum is carrying that bill. It's now moved on successfully from the Education Committee to the Appropriations and then on to the House. So it looks pretty good. You know, we haven't seen any school safety funding since 2010 from the U.S. Department of Ed. So I think they understand the great need that we have, especially in light of recent events. So with that, I'd like to open it up for the sheriff as well as the chief.
Hi, thank you for having us here today. It's disheartening to go from such a wonderful experience with all the kids and talking about the great opportunities we offer to our children and our community into this very real challenge that we're all facing nowadays. Obviously, the events of the last week have heightened our senses once again, most recently in Florida, but just a short time ago in Aztec, and we got together and met after that as well. It's a very difficult situation. Law enforcement is continually trying to figure out what this looks like and how to train more effectively and how to do things correctly. To be sad, we're going to tell you that we're doing our best, but there's not a perfect answer. There isn't, but we want to talk about what we're doing and what our goals are and kind of get some ideas from you as well. So.
Well, good evening. My name is Cameron Neves. I'm the chief of Durango Police Department. So I really want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and address you. I also want to thank Kathy and Dan for being a great partner. It's been almost a year. It's amazing how time goes by. These are challenging times, and it's been a challenging few decades. This is, recent events were in Florida before Aztec, but this is, unfortunately, has been this generation that we are raising has been, all they've seen is active violence, whether it's schools or other places. So like the sheriff says, the challenges are many. One of the biggest challenges that we have to think about is how we in an open democratic society keep everybody safe, where the openness is the essence of our country. So it's a big challenge that maybe other places might not have that. The ability for people to move and be free in their persons and places, and how do you balance that with what we're dealing with now? So looking forward to the discussion.
The thing that's been really on my mind since this last incident was the fire alarm. If there's a fire alarm, how do you have a lockdown? If you're in lockdown, how do you ignore a fire alarm? I know there's no answer, but do you have any idea, I don't know if it's priorities or if it's I don't know. Is there anything we can do in that direction?
So let me answer, if you don't mind. Nancy, one of the things that we train our staff and students on is the Standard Response Protocol, the SRP. And within that training, it talks about when a fire alarm is activated, assess your personal safety. If you smell smoke and see flames, then you need to think about a different access or evacuation. So we talk about it in that training when we think about active shooter or a threat in the building and how do we respond to that fire alarm. It's going to be a long, ongoing discussion as we speak to our staff and students about that, because we're seeing it used in many ways during a lockdown. Arapahoe High School staff member actually pulled that fire alarm because he was concerned about the kids in the building and wanted to get them out. But in Aztec, and then what we saw in Florida, the intent of the intruder was to pull the alarm to get the students out. So we really have to be mindful of personal safety and keep that in the forefront of our students and our staff for their own personal safety and react accordingly.
That's a tough one, yeah.
Yeah, I think Kathy said it most appropriately, that just because you have a protocol in place, fire alarm evacuation, you should not just blindly go and follow suit, because one of the issues that we have faced for several years has been this desire to use the fire alarm system to evacuate people. And as from law enforcement perspective, we have said, no, that's not the way to go at, because there's a core function to it. But I'm really glad to hear and Kathy talk about that. One of the ways that it's being taught is just not blindly just going out there. Now, I don't know what the policies in other places has been, but I'm really glad to see that for Durango 9R district, that is not, alarm is pulled and we just leave. You still have to assess, because now we know we have two situations where that was the intent, was to bring people out in masses to have a target-rich environment. So
Well, I think the key is flexibility. Columbine was the first event that on a national level really drew law enforcement's attention to this type of a scenario where we were going to have people wanting to commit these types of acts inside of a school. I can't tell you how many iterations of training there have been and changes to that training through law enforcement and fire. Post-Columbine, or at the time of Columbine, it was wait until you have a team to go in an active shooter event, and you got to have at least 4 people. It's perfect for us if we do, because then we can have a front guard and a rear guard and cover our sides and do everything. We learned that these are too quick. Things are happening too fast. There's too much carnage happening in those moments while we're waiting to get our support team. We've had to transition and change. Just last week, if you had heard us at our emergency communications meeting, the Chief Afsel and Chief Black from the fire department were having a discussion around tactics, and we're constantly having to modify and be adaptable as things come up, and how do we incorporate our best intent and our best training in those situations. And as these nefarious intent type things happen with the fire alarm, we're going to have to decide with your staff, not just our staff, what are these protocols? What has been programmed into us as automatic may not need to be automatic anymore, and we may need to have a priorities list like you mentioned and try to figure out, I think Kathy said it best, if there's obvious signs of fire, but then what happens when it's the shooter that lit the fire and there are obvious signs of fire? So we're going to have to be adaptable and flexible as we continue to train your staff and as we continue to refine how we respond to these events.
We're just discussing tonight, so if you have a question or a comment, go ahead with it. We don't have set questions this evening.
Okay, great. So you guys might have been aware that over Mancos School District, they had they voted on whether or not to train and arm teachers, and that went down 4-1. And I wonder if you have thoughts on that you'd be willing to share. Just put my bias out there that I'm not in favor of that, only because there are so many opportunities for something to go wrong. But I wonder what your thinking is, and is that a conversation we can have?
Well, we can have any conversation that we choose to have. The question is, what makes best sense? So I've been doing this line of work for 27 plus years. I live, breathe this kind of work, as a sheriff. I've been trained in SWAT, I've commanded SWAT, I have a lot of training. But I can tell you that our training is still very sterile. And when things happen, they're so dynamic that I'm not sure that at times we wonder if we have the right training, and we're always constantly evolving our own training. The other part of that is, do you really want your teachers to be armed, and what kind of message does that send? And the amount of training that we know that we have to do, and at times we don't even feel that we're prepared because things keep evolving, right? You're always looking at, okay, well, who did what? And this, because it is what it's, as we call this a calling, just like teaching is a calling. You're working on your craft nonstop to be able to be the best teacher you can be. We're doing the same thing. So the question isn't whether it makes sense or not. The question is, do you even have the time to allow for the multitude of training and all the different variables that occur when we do our firearms training? Because it's live bullets, so we have to do it in a sterile environment. We have to be very, very careful. And I think Sheriff was showing me something that there in one of the trainings there was somebody shot from in schools. So you really can't duplicate that real life situation. We try to do as much as we can. So again, we should discuss anything and everything to keep our kids safe. What's the reality as to how effective you're going to be on a handgun? And carnage happens very quickly. I know my understanding in Aztec was it happened before anybody else knew it. This one, from what we know, is a little bit longer. But other shootings happen where they're done in 2 or 3 minutes, and that's it. So I don't know if that's the right approach, but we should keep talking about different avenues.
Obviously, there's two schools of thought out there nationally. Schools are gun-free zones, so let's make them non-gun free so they're not subject to all of this anymore, because guns are the solution. And then there's take all the guns away. I'm not here to stake a political position on either one of those. I appreciate the chief's comments on training. I don't know if you're familiar with Lieutenant Colonel Grossman. He's a national speaker. He's been to Durango and talks on the circuit here. But one of the things he talks about is the military's figuring this out, if you will. That at the end of World War II, the Marine Corps and the Army, and hopefully I'll get all these facts right. I'm referring back to some training I've been to a long time ago, but essentially they had 70% of the soldiers and Marines they had interviewed reported they were not able to shoot and kill the enemy in a one-on-one situation at the end of World War II. And when you're on storming a beach and just shooting at sand dunes and stuff, but when it's you and me, two humans looking at each other, 70% of our soldiers could not do it. And what they found is back then training was bullseyes, right? Soldiers are trying to hit the center of the target, and you can be a great marksman and do all of that. But when you get one-on-one, all of those things that we're taught from the moment that we're introduced into society is, I'm a human, you're a human, we respect each other, you don't hurt people. If you do have gun training, you never point a gun at something you're not willing to destroy, right? And that humanity piece of us comes out. So what the military did was they embarked on training which I went through when I was in the U.S. Army, that began to change the dynamic. And everything soldiers shot at was something that looked like the enemy. In my case, it was little Russian pop-up soldiers. I was in the Army during the Cold War. And they got rid of bullseye targets and all that, and everything that a soldier shoots at then becomes something that looks like what they're going to be expected to shoot at when they get on the battlefield. It was kind of programming that muscle memory and dehumanizing the situation, if you will. By the end of Vietnam, 90% of soldiers and Marines were able to identify that they could shoot and kill the enemy in a one-on-one scenario. As I look at your mission statement on the wall and I think about what your goal is, do we want to dehumanize our teachers? Do we want to commit a lot of time and resources to giving them the types of training that we give to our officers and the military gives to its personnel? I'm not sure. That's an answer for you. But it's not an easy solution. There's no doubt that in the right scenario you can. And a school district in eastern Texas decided to do this several years ago, and in 2013 at their first firearms training, the janitor accidentally shot himself. So you're asking people to step into a role that may not be normally customary for them, and it requires an extreme commitment. The military trains all the time. My agency, we have at least 6 weapons-related qualification type trainings a year. We do things that get heart rates up and try to get adrenaline going and have you run into a place and flip a target around, and it's a shoot, don't shoot scenario. After Aztec, I went and spoke to some of the teachers that I know. I'm an 18-year parent in 9R. I've got one middle schooler left that'll be in the high school next year. The one just graduated college and one's in the Air Force. But I talked to some teachers that I know that I've met over the years, and not one teacher that I know told me they want to do that. In fact, one school counselor said, "I love kids. We saw it tonight. My job is to love kids, to nurture kids. And now, yes, I want to protect those that would be shot, but you're also asking me to kill one that I might love myself." And so I think it's a hard decision. It's individual for teachers, but it's something that you have to decide how much of your mission do you want to kind of move away from in order to go down that path. There's other options. It's expensive, putting armed security in schools, putting law enforcement in schools, but not even those scenarios. We found intelligence and briefings that say that the first thing a school shooter's thought about is, I'm going to go find the school resource officer who's uniformed and shoot them first so that I take the threat against me out before I do things. So none of this is perfect. There's not a right solution. I very much appreciate the SAFER grant opportunities and those type of things that are going to allow us to have a better focus on how do we secure that facility. But sometimes, as you know, the danger's from within. And I don't think there's a perfect answer. What I'd hate is my staff's not going to know all your staff. And if you have a bunch of armed teachers, and I'll give you a sample of this in just a second, as we come running to that building because we're not waiting for our team anymore, God forbid we shoot a teacher that's out there trying to end the scenario with their handgun. In Denver, several months ago, there was a shooting in a Walmart, and the Denver PD was delayed several hours in making an arrest because there were so many armed citizens that heard the gunshots, pulled their weapons, that they had to track every one of those people. They didn't catch the actual shooting on video, but they had to track every citizen that had drawn their gun back to their cars, figure out who they were, and then they finally got to their guy like 6 or 7 hours later. It complicates things for us when there's guns everywhere. I guess that's the way to say it. But I'm not sure that it's not the answer either. So it's a very tough thing.
So I have a question. How did your most recent training at the high school go?
On Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it went very well. We had staff only in attendance. We had representation from our law enforcement agencies, the sheriff's office, as well as DPD, and ran the staff through a training on the SRP with the lockdown and evacuation component, and then put them into 11 classrooms for a lockdown assimilated situation. Law enforcement then deployed airsoft gun, 3 shots in the hallway. One of the staff, whoever heard it first, alerted their own classroom, as we would in a typical situation, is what we expect, and then did tried to do an announcement over the PA system, and then we called a number that we set up with the 911 comm operators that were actually on scene to help us facilitate a 911 call. So we had a kind of a revelation of what that call might sound like and look like, and what the expectation was from staff, but also what some of our communication failures were. So we were able to identify some of our gaps and share them with our law enforcement partners. So it was a good exercise. I hope to conduct similar exercises at all of our schools in partnership with our emergency responders. So we live in what some people are saying scary times, but really they're uncertain. And what we need to do is shift our mindset and really try to build some resilience and coping skills for our staff and our students and our families. Because remember, when something goes down, our families are key for us and our community, right, for parent reunification and support as we go through our recovery process.
So, this grant funding that we possibly get is going to help fill some voids. What deficiencies are out there? What would you say would be the greatest areas for improvement? And what will these funds allow you to do?
So we're looking at multiple features of our buildings. So creating some vestibules, so the secured entry, where we actually have our front office staff can see those people who are coming to the building. We have the Buzz video entry system, which provides a certain layer of protection, but those vestibules will really allow us to have direct visual contact with people who come to our building. Putting some ballistic type film, which is bullet resistant, not bulletproof film on our windows will also help. But the training, we need training for our staff and our students, and finding that time to bring staff in for that training is key. Radio communications for interoperability with our first responders. You know, we're close. We just don't have the hardware, software to make that happen. We do have handheld radios where we do have good operability communications that we practice during our safety drills. So we still have another phase to go to. And probably another issue that we need to resolve is our doors. And the doors being, you know, when a door is left open or blocked for a long period of time, we need to have an alarm on those doors so that we can identify why that door has been blocked. We have kids and staff that still are blocking some of our exterior doors. So we're aware of it.
I just would like to say, again, thank you to the three of you. Worked along with Kathy, and she does a tremendous job, and Chief has been here and doing good work. And Sheriff Smith, I've been in the jail, you know, in my day job. We have a GED program over there, and again, just a lot of respect for the changes that you've put into place there. It's, as I say, a clean, well-lighted place compared to how it was 18 years ago, and you feel it in the staff, and you feel it in the offenders. It's a very different place, and I attribute a lot of that to your leadership, so I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. I look for the day when we don't ask our kid when they get in the car with us, hey, how'd your active shooter drill go today? You know, my parents' generation was under their desks because we were worried about the threat of nuclear war. We fortunately don't have to do those things anymore. It's not insurmountable. It's something we'll get a handle on. I'll be honest, I get very concerned because I've got the outlying elementary schools, whether it's Animas Valley or Florida Mesa or Sunnyside or Fort Lewis Mesa. You know, this last shooting lasted 7 minutes. There's not a lot of time on the clock there. So these activities of trying to make our schools a little safer are going to pay big dividends in the long run, I think so.
Yeah. Another thing that we have talked about, I know about Kathy and Dan, that the safety of our kids is just not about relying on first responders, because we're actually not at the school. You know, we have SROs at the school, but they involve a lot of different activities. They might be the front, they might be somewhere else. It is everybody's responsibility. It's you know, custodian, it's teachers, it's principals. Every single one, it's parents or it's neighbors recognizing that something is off with someone and reporting that. We actually have a very good system of Safe to Tell, and we look at that all the time. Based on a lot of the information that has come out every time every shooting occurs, whether it's an active shooter at school or active violence somewhere else, you see after the fact information comes out that somebody knew something. And you know, this is pretty much a message I give to everyone, and we do in law enforcement. Pick up the phone, call us. If you don't call us, we're gonna not know. I know some things happened in the last one that maybe you know, the ball was dropped, but do not let that discourage you. Call. Let us do what we can within the laws and rules that are allocated to us. That's before the fact, being resilient. After the fact is, everyone will have to play a part in making sure that either we not let any damage occur, or if something occurs, it's extremely minimized. And because, you know, best case scenario, 2-3 minutes, it's going to be there. But all the research shows in 3-4 minutes is done. You know, so.
One of the things that concerns me, relating to wrapping up, is I heard some students talking, and they said they were afraid to be in school because they felt like they were sitting ducks. And so to hear the things that you are doing and having in place is really encouraging. And we need to I think, communicate this more with the students, not just leave them like, we don't want to scare them by telling them, but by not telling them, they get scared. So the more drills you have, the more information you have, and hearing you speak with authority and with experience is very, I don't know if I want to say comforting, but it makes us feel good about moving forward and that we are actively engaged in prevention.
Nancy, can I chime in?
Sure.
I want to certainly recognize both the Sheriff's Department and Durango PD. Safe to tell is definitely keeps all of us busy. And you know what? I'd rather be busy and checking on concerns and areas of concern for students or parents than not. But the reality is, you know, Kathy's on the phone with dispatch all hours of the night when we get a report of a student who's either a threat to themselves or a threat to others. And their officers are just amazing in making contact immediately, assessing the situation, working closely with us to make sure that we have a plan. And what we never know is the number of potential hazards that we've prevented, and that those will never be reported. But one of the things that I am continually impressed by in Durango is the cooperation, to have a sheriff and a police chief work together, side by side, meet together, debrief, plan together. Again, as you heard on Friday, we had both sheriff's officers and DPD at Durango High School. Durango High School is in the city. But our sheriff's office is always an active partner, and that's amazing. And I don't know how many of our community members realize how lucky we are to have leadership like these two gentlemen that are in front of us, and the many line officers below them to really organize and work together. And again, I just can't say enough to say thank you for the work you guys do.
I need to throw out a little word for you as well and your staff. As you know, we've had some situations that have tested us a little bit. Our school bus rollover a couple of years ago out on Lightner Creek Road. We did a good job. We made some mistakes. You know, it's not a really good thing to tell your parents that your reunification, go to the chapel at the hospital, right? The things that they put in their head, right? So how many parents we traumatize in that event. But what's really great is instead of finger pointing, we get together, we learn from our lessons. It's Dan's staff, it's Kathy, it's all of us working together, and we're building better relationships, and we're building a better working team all the time, even when it's not a training scenario, it's a real world situation. So very appreciative of your support as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, 5B, the DAC mid-year report. Jessica Wheeler.
Jessica,
there
thank you
are.
for your patience.
Oh, okay, good.
Not going to take a full half hour.
Well, you're important enough.
So there's a document going around. Can you guys hear me? So my name is Jessica Wheeler, and I'm the co-chair of the DAC with Andrea Parmenter. And I'm here today just to do our mid-year report. Just as a little review, I know you guys all know us fairly well at this point, but I wanted to review what we're responsible for according to the handbook. And basically, what we do is we make recommendations to the district with regards to budget priorities. We help and make recommendations regarding the UIPs at the school level. We provide input and advisory on assessment tools. And then we also work cooperatively in other areas, determining, just issues that are important to the school district each year. Obviously, this year safety has been a big issue, and, we talk about transportation, we talk about almost everything, which you can see on the next top document there. So we have a total of 9 meetings over the course of the year, and we've already had 4 meetings. And at each meeting, we will touch on 1 or 2 topics that are important, and we generally have guest speakers who come and present those. And the participation in each meeting has actually been fantastic. We have a representative from every school. We have a representative for all of the teachers and all of the principals as well. So it's a great information sharing opportunity. The Finance Committee also generally has a representative there as well to share their information. Let's see, what else? So the agenda topics that we've touched on this year already are on this next sheet. And you can see I'm sort of not a big fan of reading to you what you have in front of you. But if you have any questions about the topics that we've addressed so far, I'd be happy to answer any questions. But we've really talked about a broad spectrum of topics. And then 2 things that we've worked on hard this year, we just finished our surveys. So all of the surveys are out for all of the schools. They're up on the website, and we're going to begin reaching out to parents in a concerted effort to get a very high response to our survey questions. And then the other thing that we've worked on this year is reworking our bylaws, because right now the current DAC bylaws aren't necessarily in line with what the state requirements are. And so we are going to be rewriting those and submitting those to you. So that's pretty much it. Did you guys have any questions about what we're doing, or?
I was wondering about the survey. It says here that you're launching it in February.
It's launched.
It's launched.
It's launched.
And
It's
how long-
February.
How long does it take to get the results and put things together?
I believe we're going to be presenting them to you in April.
Cool. We really look forward to that. It's really good information for us.
Yes, and this year we had a great process with regards to the surveys. We broke up into subgroups so that each of the different level of school could really orient the survey towards their population, and we tried to streamline them a little bit and ask some different questions. So I think that I hope that the results are something that the schools can really use. And we also incorporated a lot of the data that we had last year, and we talked about that in the beginning of the year with regards to suggestions for the district, specifically around how to make sure that we're addressing diversity in the classroom with regards to our book choices. So, real data comes out of these surveys, and I think it gets turned around and actually implemented in the schools. So it's a good thing. Yeah.
We have a couple of new board members.
Mm-hmm.
Could you explain what you do with the results? Like, do they go back to the parents? Do they go to the schools? Are they public? Are they...
Yes. Yes, is the answer. So it's all collected together, and it's presented back at the DAC meeting, and all of the school accountability committee members then take it out to their individual schools and talk about it in committee at the school. And that's how that information around the choice of books in the school sort of got disseminated. I believe they're also available, the data is available online as well. So anybody who actually seeks it out and has access.
Yeah, and your operational expectations refer to several of the district questions. That's part of the evaluation process on our administrative team.
I remember seeing it before. It's very thorough and very informative.
Yes. And ideally we'll get a much higher response rate this year. I think that's really one of our goals, is to work to have a very large representation of our population respond. And one of the reasons, or one of the ways we did that, is we started the process a lot earlier this year. So hopefully we'll see better
There's always a problem of when to give it and would it get home. And
yes.
Our goal as a district for our principals is 60%, no less than 60% participation, which for some schools they've done that regularly. For other schools, that's a stretch, but really something that we really want to make sure we get a broad cross-section of our families to respond, because obviously without that data, it's hard to know where our family feel, or
We need
how
a
our
broad
families feel.
spectrum, yeah. Any questions about any of their other items, or?
Okay.
Like to express our gratitude.
Oh.
You do an amazing amount of work, and
thank
it's really important to us.
It's great. It's a really interesting and informative experience, and we have a great camaraderie in the group as well. It's a good, we live in a great community, so.
We do.
So, okay, thank you.
Jessica.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much. Okay. 6A, public participation and correspondence. Do we have any?
I don't have anything, and I'm not aware if you all have seen any emails.
I have a question.
But we don't have anyone that wants to speak.
No.
Here tonight.
I have a
Is there
question
anyone-
with
yeah.
regard to correspondence. The community accountability survey, people wanted to know if we had responded to them and said they hadn't heard anything back. And I just wanted to know
I wanted to say those.
if we're
I,
gonna do that.
I thought we'd kind of talk about it a bit, because I've been,
Maybe it's new business, I don't know.
well, maybe, but I've been struggling with how much to say and when to say it and how to say it, so I wanted to talk to all of you, so I speak for, or we speak as one voice with
Okay.
that.
Probably a good new business item.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. 7A, request superintendent's report.
Andy, do you want to come up and join me? The board in operational expectations under financial administration requires that no less than once every 5 years, or I'm sorry, no more than once every 5 years, we go out to seek a request for proposal from auditing firms. We've had great success with Wall Smith Bateman, and we certainly are hoping they'll also respond, but we will go out and solicit proposals from all of the firms that are interested in our business. So really just want to brief you on that. Andy, you want to add in?
Sure. So attached in board docs is a copy of the draft format for the audit. As Dan had said, we anticipate sending it out to the incumbent, to Wall Smith and Bateman. We've been very pleased with their service. However, just as it's in the operational expectations, it's your right to make sure that we're doing that on a 5-year basis. We've been with Wall Smith and Bateman for 8 years, and they've served us well. They've gotten to know us well. But we will be reaching out to other auditing firms here in Colorado just to see what else is out there and make sure that your dollars and the taxpayer dollars are used wisely.
Okay.
So we'll, once we receive these proposals, Andy, when's the deadline for response? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't, off the top of my head. I want to say it's in
March 13th.
March, yeah,
just open it
mid-March.
up.
So that would be in conjunction with the March FAC meeting. We'd have that available, and then for the board to review as well.
So we'll take those proposals. We'll certainly review them based upon the matrix of what's requested in the RFP. We'll take that to FAC. FAC will also make a recommendation, and then we'll bring that to you. And ultimately, the choice of the auditing firm is yours. So that will come to you. Do you think in the March board meeting?
I think so, yeah.
So that'll actually come back to you next board meeting. So we'll want you to be aware that those RFPs will be attached with the recommendation. But we'll want you to pay close attention to make sure that we select the one that you believe is best for the district. So
We are back to our timetable from 5 years ago, and we're on a very similar process. So this is the appropriate time for school districts to be reaching out to auditing firms for their services. So we're not behind the game, we're not ahead of the game. It's just right on track where we need to be with this process.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Are you staying up for the next one?
Yes.
7B, request for proposals for insurance broker.
So this is not something that you typically or is required in operational expectations. However, we feel like it's appropriate practice. We have been with our current broker for 5 years. We went 5 years ago to a local broker. prior to that. Prior to my coming, we had a firm in Colorado Springs that represented the district. When I arrived, we explored an RFP process, and we really wanted to provide an opportunity for some of our local brokers, and needless to say, they were successful, the best bids. So it's not that we're unhappy with our current provider, Durango Insurance Professionals, but we do feel like it's a good process to go through. We've encouraged Durango Insurance Professionals to also submit under this RFP, but we will consider any and all proposals. This is for brokerage service. This is not for Oregon Anthem or Rocky Mountain, or it is strictly for the broker who will represent the district. And this year, with our SITSIP, our liability and property casualty insurance drastic increase, we're also going to engage that broker to also shop the market for us on property casualty insurance as well. So this proposal will go out. We've met with the insurance committee, presented it to them for their feedback, and I believe we're ready. I'll let you pick up from there.
Ready to go back. It's an aggressive timetable. We're asking RFPs to be responded to or delivered back to the district by March 9th. We do have an insurance committee we've met 2 times this year. We're going to meet on a regular basis. That next meeting is March 14th or 15th. So we'll have the RFPs. The insurance committee will go through the process. We'll have a rubric identified, and then by March 23rd, we'll identify 2 to 3 finalists to come to Durango for a presentation with the insurance committee and then with the community as well. I think, as Dan had mentioned, the timing is right for us to look at any and all options. Historically, we've been a partially self-funded health insurance firm that's working well for us. However, we want to look at other options as well, and just making sure that that's the right course for us. Looking at going to a fully funded program as well, or looking at a consortium-based program. There are 2 large consortia here in Colorado that serve multiple districts across the state, minimizing risk or spreading risk across multiple members, as opposed to just one district or one member that they work with. So this is going to be a little more of an aggressive timetable, but I feel like we've got the players at the table through the insurance committee, and then ultimately we'll share this information with the board. As Dan had said, this isn't something that typically comes before the board, but because the administrative costs are large and we might be looking at some sort of change either in the provider or the brokerage services and or the type of coverage we're providing. We wanted to provide you with just an update of what's going. At the same time, we have been really pleased with Durango Insurance. They've been reaching out to our schools to make sure that each and all of our staff are fully informed about the program options and have access to ways to mitigate expenses for the district. Items such as telemedicine, that you can call in and speak to a doctor, trying to minimize visits to urgent care, emergency room. So there are all our alternatives out there that could lower our cost. And so just trying to make sure that all of our staff are smart consumers with health insurance. So they've scheduled meetings at all of our buildings. They've gotten through probably about 3/4 of those. They'll continue to do those, just trying to make sure that awareness campaign is out there. So even though we're looking ahead to an RFP for the 18-19 year, we're looking at ways that we can get across the finish line this year in a way that will minimize risk and expense for the district.
Is it possible, because we look at RFPs and we talk, but is it also possible when you're considering your choices that you consider this service we've already been provided?
Absolutely.
I mean, not just the cost, but the way they behaved.
With an RFP, anything we know about the submitters, obviously experience comes into play. Experience not only with us, but with neighboring districts, with other school districts. So experience definitely comes into play. And when it's our own experience, I would say it probably tips the scale even further.
So it's not
the RFP
government
has 2
contract,
questions.
It has to be the cheapest, right?
There's a handful of questions that we're asking the firms to respond to, but one of them is familiarity with Durango and the Durango insurance market. We're very different from the Front Range. You don't have Kaiser. You don't have some of the other large players right there that you can just go down the street to University of Colorado Health or to Kaiser. So being in rural Colorado, 6 hours from the Front Range is a little more challenging. So having that knowledge of our market and how to service is going to be huge. So tried to tailor the questions around the peculiarities of living in Southwest Colorado and providing adequate care to this region. It's really interesting. We're seeing a variety of players, large brokerage firms from across the state reach out to us, but even Mercy is interested in a direct contract with us. So like I said, we're seeing a wide array of providers reaching out to us. So it's going to give us an opportunity to really reflect on what's going to do our staff and our employees well.
Any other questions, comments, advice?
We will bring back the recommendation after the insurance committee has a chance to review and meet with the brokers, and they'll come back with a recommendation and certainly be available to answer questions that you may have about the process. So.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Andy. Okay, moving on, 8A DEF Golf Tournament. A little bit of sport tonight. Okay. The golf tournament, is coming up. We've been asked to, or we've talked about providing a team of 4, probably teachers, could be staff, but we're thinking it would be really nice if it's people who have received grants from DEF so they can kind of say thank you and participate. We're looking at trying to get different schools involved, correct? Dan, you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, we've talked with our principals last Wednesday at our meeting about assessing staff who not only have benefited and had direct support from Durango Education Foundation, but also who are interested in playing golf. We'll cover their class for the day with the sub, and then provide them the opportunity of going. DEF has been really helpful in making sure we arrange for clubs. We may have people who've played in the past, but may not own clubs. Last year we had a teacher from Riverview that we got clubs from the golf course so that he could play. It's really helpful to our foundation as well to have those firsthand experiences. It's one thing to say it's great we help teachers. It's another thing to hear from those teachers in particular who have really been able to do some amazing things with kids because of the financial support. So 2 things. One is sponsoring a whole, and then the other is sponsoring a team or sending a team. So those are things we're really looking for your direct feedback on tonight. If you're still interested in doing so, these are funds that are in your board budget. So they're not additional monies. You're not taking monies away from other things in the district, but we do need to make sure that it's something that you as a board want to continue to do.
Last year, the whole we paid out of pocket.
Yeah.
Can we pay it out of budget?
You can, yeah. I
Or is
didn't
that
realize.
appropriate?
No, you certainly can. I mean, it's within your budget. So if it's something you'd
Because
like to do,
it was quite expensive.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not reading this right. The whole is $70 and the fee is $500?
no, $250 as a whole.
$250.
Oh,
So
I
it was
see, okay.
$50 to
Couples
teachers.
Teachers, yeah.
Yeah.
But we haven't used much of the board budget, so if people are
Yeah,
interested in that, I
that's-
think we certainly could do that.
You've not traveled much. You've been very frugal. So I think it's a good cause and certainly a way of recognizing teachers who are working hard and giving them a chance to also be a spokesperson.
How do you feel about that, participating like that? Yeah? I was wondering, do we have a student team?
We have a golf team, but we've never had them play. I don't know if there's reasons
Are
why.
they doing students or not? Would that be something that would
Something
be?
we could explore with Diana Cruz, the executive director, right? Yeah, we have a golf team.
Seems.
Yeah, pull them out of school for the day.
They can do homework that night.
Yeah, they're pulled out of school a lot for tournaments
Yeah.
already. But
Well, maybe just talk to the
Sure.
principals and see if it's something that is advisable, is interesting or
Okay.
not. But
I'll follow up
it's
with
kinda
John
cool.
and
Yeah.
see if that's of interest with
Does anybody on the board play golf?
That's it.
Oh,
That's
I can hit
that
it,
safety
just not
group that
straight.
was just here.
Just not straight.
No.
So we'll go ahead with
Is he
the.
like? Oh,
Yeah.
no, okay.
You want to learn real fast? It's hard. I tried, and it was too many body parts to think about. So we'll go ahead with the teachers team and the whole, and then you'll inquire about students.
I'll inquire and get back with you on that.
Cool. Yeah, last year didn't Matt do some decorations for our hole or something?
Jean Tweed
Oh,
and
okay.
Elizabeth Testa.
For the school?
Yeah, and they made a sign, school board. Yeah,
I'll have to find out what hole. I live on the golf course,
yeah.
and there's a hole right behind my house. We'll have to pick
You
that
could sit
one.
on your deck and ring a cowbell.
Yeah, we'll have to get the hole. I think it's fourth tee. I don't know, fourth tee or fourth hole, one of those.
Okay.
So, Okay, so that's fun. Next item is,
Madam President, could I interrupt? We do have a member of the audience who wasn't aware of the public participation item and has requested that that we go back to that item on the agenda.
okay. So, Monty Cloudel, you want to come up?
Sure.
And
Durango High School.
Sarah, you want to go over the rules?
I know basically the rules, I guess. Do I need to sit here?
Sure. That way everybody can hear you.
Okay. I am Monty Cottle. I live at 2032 Highland Avenue. I have 2 kids in 9R, 1 at Needham, and a son in the 2nd grade and a freshman daughter at the high school. I also have 2 boys at Mountain Middle School. So I was surprised to see that there were no public participants tonight. I had come just to kind of get a feeling for the community about this school shooting, about Florida, Aztec, Kentucky, Sandy Hook, goes on and on, doesn't it? I've talked to many people. It's either address the guns, and I would be all for. I don't think there's a place for AR-15s or military style, but that's not your area. I also think mental health system needs more attention, more funding, more people. But folks, those are long-term solutions. Also, the societal concerns, videos, social media. Those again are long-term. We're not going to solve it. It could happen here tomorrow. It could happen here next week. Those are long-term. We need something now. I heard the police chief talk about our open society. And I went to school here when this was a school. And you talk about an open campus. We had the high school building, the arts science building, and the Smiley building. We could come and go, and sometimes I did. And anyway, that's another story. But this is a different age. We're not going back to that Andy Griffith time. I know this is harsh, but I think we need to press the state and national legislators to provide more money. We need metal detectors and more policemen, uniformed policemen. I am totally against, especially a school system this size, of arming the teachers. That's crazy. Maybe a far-off rural school with 2 teachers, maybe, but not here. We need limited access to these schools. I believe the high school should be closed campus. I mentioned metal detectors. There may be technologies, I'm sure there are, that I'm not aware of that can even better detect the weapons. So of course, when you think about this, there are going to be all kinds of logistical problems. But gosh, folks, don't we owe it to them to figure out those logistical problems? I know we can do this. I know that we're stretched with funding. I talked to the Dave Peterson. I've known him a long time. He's a policeman on the force, deals with the SROs. They're stretched so thin. But now, without bringing too much, well, I'll just bring it in. There's the biggest tax cut in history. We have the money. I don't care if they have to repeal it. And I know I'm not talking to the president here, but there's money out there. If we press and make our voices heard, there's money out there, there's funding out there, and we can do this. If we don't, I think we need to hang our heads in shame. I think we failed Aztec. I think we failed Florida. How can you think of all the concerns? Global warming, big one for me. Border, build up a military, whichever side of and we are so divided, whichever side of the fence you're on, you have your own priorities. But how could they supersede this one? This is a national emergency. This has to be our main focus. Did you, I know it hurt you deeply, but can you just visualize waking up the next morning? If you were one of those parents, I never want to do that. Anyway, I've probably spent more time than I was allowed, and I appreciate your flexibility.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you for coming. I just want to we don't discuss now, but I want to make a comment that your pain is our pain too.
I would love to meet with you, though.
Yeah.
I'd love to reach out and maybe let you know some of the things we are doing and get some feedback, if that's okay.
And that'd be great. I did come here to get an education.
And the more
Thank you.
ideas,
Appreciate
the
it.
better. So, thank you.
Thank you.
You know, when the kindergartners were standing up here, it hit me, you know, Sandy Hook. That was the age of the kids at Sandy Hook.
I have a friend who lives down the street who was in Aztec with a
gee.
student during the lockdown.
Yeah. The one thing that really hit home, besides the idea for types of solutions, it's got to be a national priority. It just has to be now. So, thank you. Okay, for matters reserved for board action, Elizabeth Testa scholarship process. This isn't really a vote. We need to clarify and create a time schedule for when we're doing what and how we're doing it. There's been some confusion over the criteria. Andy and I talked about this in the beginning, and we kind of got the ball rolling. And one of the questions Sherry had for me was, is this just for a career? Is it, you know, how do we explain that criteria? The original idea was that it would be for students who are focused more on the career. When we say career in college, that it's focused more on the career because there's never enough money, but there's more money for the four-year college scholarships. And we felt like sometimes the criteria was set so that students interested in careers, either tech college, technical schools, community colleges, or beginning programs, even at a four-year school, would get some emphasis. We deliberately set the grade point a little bit lower so that the kids who were really emphasizing shop and welding and nursing and firemen and things like that would get a chance. They wouldn't be the only ones, but they would be in the mix with other students. So we've had the 22 applications for a little while now. It's a lot. But we need to decide when we want to say it's time to turn in your top 5 or top 3, whatever we decide. And then when we want to get together and discuss. I'm going to, and you're welcome to come, there's a DEF scholarship meeting Thursday at 1:30. Where they're going to be going through their scholarships. And they said we're welcome to come, see their process, ask questions, get whatever information we need to help us make our choices. And they will be involved in guiding us through the process and making the choice. So we need to know when are we going to, say, turn in your top 5 or 3? When are we going to then get together, and who's going to get together to make the final choice?
So I still need to know what criteria we're, because I can't make a top 3 choice if we're not following the same criteria.
Well, the criteria on the paper is...
I see that, but
yeah.
So if you look at the students who have applied, the majority are applying to a 4-year college for a non-career related.
And I think this year we might have to be a little more flexible because I'm not sure the message got out clearly. You know, people heard scholarship, they saw the money and applied, and it wasn't real clear on specifically what it was for. So
Okay, so just to be clear, we're
we have to
rating
decide.
all comers.
That's what we have to decide.
Okay.
Because the intent was more for career, but if it's career in a 4-year school, is that the same thing or not?
I mean, right, because we had several who want to become medical doctors, a couple want
And
to
that
become
is career.
veterinarians. So those are high-level professional. That's, 8 or 10 or 12 years, which is very different from. And do we weight these equally? Because we had some people who addressed their hardships far more thoroughly than others did.
Some not at all.
Yeah, basically. So I would just like to know, sort of, is it 25% to each of these?
But we
or
have to
do
decide, it's our
Yeah.
scholarship.
Could we set up a criterion matrix and apply some weights to that? And I'd be willing to
That would be great.
make a first stab at that and send it
Yes.
around to folks so that you guys
It'd be
can-
helpful. So there's some
because
consistency.
Right, exactly.
because that's my
And
problem
otherwise
is
you're gonna
that
end up
I
with-
want to be fair and
Yeah.
I
This is
can't
really
if I don't know
important to
what
the students, so
criteria are.
fairness is critical.
Okay, I'll make a first stab at that.
Okay,
Thank you.
and then, has everybody glanced at them at least, have a familiarity? So if you'll do that, then we go through them again. How long do we need to finish that task?
Set a deadline and it'll happen.
Dan, you had your
No,
finger up there?
I think that one of the things you may want to also think about is, do you want to have a team or does the entire board want to interview? Because I think that's a great process. You know, on paper, everyone looks great. You're looking for what distinguishes someone, and sometimes it may be how they present themselves
So we need
or the rest of the story that's not in the application. So I would encourage you to also then think about, if you came down to 3, do you do 2 of you, 3 of you, 4 of you, all 5 of you want to interview, just so you can get to know that person. I think one of the things DEF does really well is all of the scholarships that they sponsor or support. There's that connection between the group giving the scholarship and the student before it's given. So I think
So we need a
it would
couple
be
of
helpful.
dates. First of all, when do we want to fill in Sherry's chart? And then how soon would we want to? The drop dead deadline for this is April 1. DEF would appreciate it if it was a little bit earlier than that, because they have things they do with it then. It's not just a, hey, we'd like to give you a scholarship. There's a lot of legal aspects to it that we have to abide by and make sure that we are doing this
How
correctly.
quickly can we get a matrix, do you think?
I can get you a matrix probably by the end of the week.
Okay, so
Maybe by the end of next week
a week
or a Monday after the
I went
weekend.
through half of them
Monday or
today.
Tuesday?
Okay.
So
If you get it to us, like, are you saying Friday or Saturday or Sunday or weekend? Okay, weekend.
probably late Friday.
Well, let's look at the calendar. We have a calendar.
Nancy, if you did Monday, March 5th to get the top ratings, that gives you another weekend as well. So that way you can have the time to really read through them.
Okay, so this weekend is what date?
This weekend is the 24th, 25th. So Monday is the 5th. So it would be another weekend after this. So if Sherry got it done even
still gives us plenty
Saturday,
of time.
you would have the matrix. You'd have a full week.
Can you give me the dates? Saturday the?
March. I'm suggesting, well, if
No, but Saturday.
Saturday the 25th, that you
25th.
get the matrix. Is that?
Yeah, we have to revise if people want it. So you need to give people
25th is 26th. That's Saturday or Sunday.
you're saying all of us have our top 3 candidates in by Monday, March 5th.
By Monday, March 5th.
I'll have mine
And you can
before that.
determine how many
That's my
people
spring
want
break.
Already read.
Because that's my spring break.
Okay, and then we,
That's true.
that would give
Spring
us,
break?
For me.
yeah, that
I'll
might,
have them before
that could give us
I'm gonna
15
recommend-
people,
I'm
but
going to
might
recommend
not.
top 5. Because they're,
Okay.
yeah.
You're going to find that not all of you will have the same 5.
No.
So out of top 5 of all of you, you may
But
find
we'll
3
see which 3
consistent.
are consistent maybe.
If we set up the matrix right,
Then you
then
probably
we'll be
would.
closer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Agreed.
So-
And then the interview the week of the 12th.
We're going to do it to coincide with the work session on the 6th. Is that?
Yeah, if you, yeah,
I
you
won't
would.
be here.
Is it,
I won't be here either. You
Well,
better talk
I will
about
be.
that in your
Yeah.
is it legal, is it allowable to have our students also,
Absolutely. Yeah.
would you like to be involved in this? Okay. The thing is, it has to be confidential, so if you see a friend or something. Okay, so we can get that
I think you-
information to you.
Get the deadline in with the top 5 and then put a noodle out there to see if we can
Yeah.
match it up with a work session to go ahead and get it.
That would be nice. What day is the work session in March?
It's the 6th, so that would not work.
But then your regular meeting is the 20th. If you did an executive session, you could interview during the executive session. It's
That's
late.
good.
But if we have our top candidates on the 5th, on the 6th, we could at least discuss a little bit.
You could as a team debrief,
Yeah.
based in case there aren't 5, like Sherry
Yeah.
said, if the
there's
matrix
a
is clear,
question.
you'll probably come pretty close, but if there's any in or out, you could discuss that on the 6th. Notify candidates and then set up interviews. If, like I said, the whole board could, or you could have a committee if 2 of you
Also,
were really
you mentioned
passionate.
maybe Dreer and
Dreer Robertson or David Blau from Big Picture, and Rachel Colesman, and I don't know if John
Because
has
they
an
would know the
administrator.
students.
That way you also can get more information on those students and the impact this would have on them. So you could certainly expand your team. It doesn't have to just be board, but again, that's your choice whether you want
we
to.
can talk about that on the 6th maybe, depending on how close we are with what we think. Okay, that timeline sound okay? The 5th, so the 25th or 6th, Sherry will get us the thingy. What is
The
it?
thingy, the matrix.
Matrix. Ooh, the Matrix. Izzy, we're going to the Matrix.
She probably doesn't know what that is.
Oh, is that before your time? Oh, darn,
Yeah,
I thought it was
Keanu Reeves
recent.
is an old guy for her.
Didn't they
Yeah,
make
no
a new
way.
one? Come on, folks. Didn't
Nancy.
they make a new one?
Not really.
No.
No, oh, darn.
Nancy, our,
Panthers.
Oh, okay.
Reference to them.
Sorry.
our dinner with teachers is on the 13th. So if all of you are going to be there, you might want to just piggyback on that and do some interviews. That way you're not coming together another night. Our dinner with teachers would probably be about an hour and a half. So if that still works for folks, that may be a good night to think about having students come early, if that works for you, before teachers arrive, or after teachers leave, we could
Did
bring
the
them in.
students stay up that late?
Where's the dinner?
Do we have a time for that dinner?
5 to 7.
5 to 7?
Where is it?
At Needham Elementary in the community room.
Okay.
That's on the
13th.
13th.
An auspicious day.
We hope to have at least 22 teachers, 2 from each building.
Nice.
And DEA will also have some of the ARs who maybe didn't get to come to the last one also join. So potentially we'll have 22 to maybe 26 folks if we're successful in finding that many folks. But
And when will we know the topics that have been chosen?
we're going to talk about that in the next item.
All righty.
I jumped ahead, just wanted to get that date
Well,
out there.
that's, I
Sorry.
thought we were on the next item.
So everything's okay with the scholarship? We're all
Yeah.
understanding and, Sarah, would you remind me, we need to get the information to Izzy and to William? But we need to talk to William before we give it to him.
So are you talking about the matrix to Izzy and William?
Are
Yeah,
we
and-
having them review, or are we just having them involved in?
I would have
the
them
interview?
involved in the interview. That's a lot
Just the
to ask.
interview.
Just the
of
Oh, okay.
interview. I
impact
would
of-
have
It's
an
22
interview.
things, so.
Yeah.
When we do the interview, you come in and participate?
Are you okay with that, Izzy? You could read 22 if you want, but I think you've got other things to read probably.
I don't know whether that's a good thing to have
Yeah.
students do.
Yeah, that's right.
Just confidentiality wise, I don't think that's a good thing for students.
You said 5 to 7?
That's right. I haven't seen them, but I heard that.
Okay, monitoring board policy, 9A, BC 05, board's members code of conduct indicator. We looked at this before, but, what was the reason?
What do we need to do?
Yeah, this
Why
is
did we
on the
bring this back?
consent to find yourself in compliance. You reviewed it at the last meeting. This is your chance if there were
Oh,
any
this is the follow-up.
indicators
Right.
that you wanted to make any modifications to. You were all in compliance, so I don't know that there are any indicators that you felt like, wow, these are off. But we always try to bring it back to you just so you have that opportunity. this is something we could also put on the next agenda if that's
I think,
helpful.
yeah.
Or if you're comfortable with the indicators, and you can just say no changes and move on. So
When you
Does
went
this need
through
a
this,
motion?
did anyone have questions about what we were
once it's changed.
evaluating ourselves on? Was it clear? Was there anything you thought was missing or redundant?
I think this is probably
This
one of
one
our
was pretty
tightest
straightforward.
BCs. So
Yeah.
I think it's okay.
Okay, and we don't need to vote on that, right?
we
So,
won't bring that back. We'll just move forward with
Yeah.
it as is.
I think so.
yeah, we just bring it back. Take another quick look at it for the wording on that? No, nobody wants to? Okay.
Moving on.
Board development, staff and board dinner planning.
So first thing we want to do is at the meeting at CJ's, one of the teachers did bring written feedback and gave it to Sarah. So we're delivering that to you because we want to certainly honor the time that that teacher took to actually pull that together. So that's feedback that you can read, and we can certainly talk about that in the future if you want, or if there's conversation you want to have tonight. The dinner on the 13th, one of the things that we're currently exploring, and I have a webinar in the morning to talk about the Thought Exchange software. I've kind of described it to you in the past. This is where participants in a meeting can suggest topics for conversation or issues they'd like to discuss, and then participants actually rank them. They actually rate them as high, middle, or low, and ultimately you end up with your participants coming knowing that these are the 4 topics that we as a group feel are most passionate. So our hope is that tomorrow I can execute securing that access to Thought Exchange. It is a great piece of software that you can use beyond just this. You can use it for community dialogue. You could use it for coffees. If you as a board scheduled a coffee and wanted the community to weigh in on what are the topics you want to hear about, it would be a great way for you to do that as well. So I think it's a great tool for us, both the board and administration and even principals who may want to really be able to assess. It's different than a typical survey, because a survey you're weighing on something someone else thinks is important. This is a chance for your voice to be heard as a participant, and so it's pretty powerful. So the thought that we had, I think, as we've kind of thrown around ideas on this, is that we would, once we have teachers identified, we've asked principals to identify 2 teachers by February 28th, which is next Wednesday. We'll have a list that we can then contact, confirm that they're able to come, and then send them the link where they can submit their thoughts and ideas for topics they'd like to discuss with you as a board. And then ultimately, before the dinner, they would be able to go in a second time and rate those, so that ultimately the highest priorities are the ones that come forward, and you would know those in advance. So certainly any information you needed to gather in advance, it wouldn't be a shock to you. You wouldn't be surprised. And then, so we'd have dinner. We're hosting it at Needham because this will be a larger group. We're going to host it at Needham, where we can have a table for each board member and probably have seven teachers with you. We're going to repeat this process in April with support staff, and that's something we don't have a date for yet. We want to work with Jennifer Latham and DESPA to try to identify a process for selecting staff so that you hear from the variety of job families. And that's on my agenda to talk to Jennifer Latham this Thursday about, and I'll come back to you with those thoughts and ideas that we gather. So this one is really a free-flowing conversation similar to what you had, but it'll be topics that you know are important to the teachers who are participating. So if that still sounds acceptable, we'll move forward with making that happen. Again, that will just be board members there. No administrators will come. Really a chance for you to get to know teachers, dialogue with teachers, and I think it's a great chance for you to make those connections and for them to get to know who you are. So.
And of course, if somebody wants to bring up an extra topic, they're welcome to do that. Because that's what happened last time. We started with a couple of topics at my table, and they led, they splintered off and led to other interesting conversations. Good, but I like that topic choice where everybody gets a say.
Right. You know, what's helpful is sometimes people think their thought is the most important thought to everyone. And it's hard for us, right? As human beings, we think everybody feels this way, and that going through this process, it's not personal. It's really, I don't know whose idea that is, but I'm rating the idea versus, well, Nancy suggested it. So it's really was powerful. We used it in a Superintendent Leadership Institute I attended, and just really powerful to know what the thought process is in the room. So,
and to see that sometimes people don't say anything because they feel like, well, nobody cares about what I care about, and they find out it's a bigger.
It's right.
It's
but
common.
Actually, many do.
Right.
Yeah.
Gives you some standing. Okay. Is everybody able to go to that? Was that Sarah?
13th.
Did we have 100% on that? The 13th. Cool. And Mick will be back.
You hope so.
Okay.
Yes. That was what David.
So based on the rating, you may choose 5 topics, and each of you would have a topic, and maybe sometime during the evening have a chance to rotate, so teachers can really engage with more than just one of you on a topic of their interest. So
Yeah, we talked about we needed to think about how formal were we going to make it? Like, were we going to have note takers and this and that? But I think if we're eating and talking, maybe keep it kind of simple. But we talked about, should we have a note taker or should we have a?
I think if there is a desire or opportunity for feedback, then we need to have some way of recording kind of discussions and things that need to be followed up on.
I didn't have any trouble taking notes at our table on what the teachers were talking about. I mean,
and you can also solicit a volunteer from the table too.
Or if a couple people take notes, then one person catches what the other person did.
Right.
Maybe one teacher and one of us. Not one of us. One teacher and us.
Teacher.
Okay. How come I'm back there on the code of conduct?
Consent agendas.
Yep.
Yeah. I turned my page on. So do we have a motion for the consent agenda? Was it board and superintendent, right?
I move that we accept the superintendent's consent agenda and the board's consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Sherry Bird,
Yes, aye.
Joe Kuszar,
Aye.
Stephanie Moran,
Aye.
Nancy Stubbs.
Aye. So moved. And then we have the executive session, 13A.
These cookies in.
We need a motion, and we need to read this exactly as it's written here.
Are we going into executive session? Is that what you're saying? Okay. I move that the board go into executive session for the purpose of discussing individual students as authorized by CRS 24-6-402, parent 4, parent H. Those present in executive session shall be members of the Board of Education, the superintendent, and the board clerk.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Sherry Bird,
Aye.
Joe Kuszar,
Aye.
Stephanie Moran,
Aye.
Nancy Stubbs.
Aye.
Principals, thank you. You can head home, okay?
Monty remembers me or not. I don't know whether Monty remembers me or not. I know. He's a.
But when we get
Are we going?